Hey guys, this is Michael Navarro here with another Agora podcast. Taking my glasses off because I'm getting a lot of glare. This week, this month, whatever, since I put them out every month, we are talking with someone who owns a CrossFit gym, and you'll find out why in the description. Because I don't want to waste a whole lot of time here because I already described what we talk about in the episode. We will keep this short and brief. What I did want to say is that the audio gets a little bit choppy and kind of hard to hear at times, but bear with us. This was the first time that we did the Google Hangouts, so bear with us. I assure you it will get better as time goes on. But yeah, other than that, let's get into the show, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Now, okay, cool. We are all set.
Yep.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Agora podcast. We're doing it a little different here since I am now relocated in New York. So we got to do everything over the interwebs, which will be exciting. We have Mary here, who is Jay's friend, a CrossFit coach. I'll let her introduce herself real quick. So Mary, could you just give us an introduction of who you are and what you do?
Yes, you said it. My name is Mary. I own CrossFit North Phoenix, and I've been a CrossFit gym owner for going on 4 years now, a CrossFit athlete going on about 8 years now. Jay and I met at the ASU Health and Wellness program in college.
Awesome. And then everybody knows who Jay is, so we don't need to worry about who he is. So the top, huh?
You guys know already. You already see too much of our faces.
Exactly. As he puts his face even closer to the screen. So real quick for the audience, what we're talking about today is common mistakes, misconceptions about training, nutrition, what it is to be an athlete, whether that be a bodybuilder, powerlifter, in Mary's case, a CrossFit athlete. We're going to talk about all these different things and how you, as someone going through this process of fitness, can prevent those, avoid those, or if you are in the midst of them, how you can get out of that kind of, whether it's a mentality or thinking or some kind of thing that you're doing. So we'll go ahead and start with Jay, since he is his focus is powerlifting. We'll start on with the training as well. So Jay, let's start off with beginners. When someone comes to you, what are some things that you kind of vet for or look for that they, as a beginner athlete, may already start some issues that they may already be doing?
From the coaching standpoint, so if we're going to talk about training, one of the biggest things that I look for with new athletes that come to me, especially when they want to start with powerlifting, is have they been keeping any sort of training history, right? Training logs. That's probably one of the most important things that I look for, just because it's a lot easier for us to figure out the direction that the athlete is going to be taking if they have any idea of the type of training that they're doing. Like, obviously, if you're going to do powerlifting, you know the type of training that you're doing, but having an idea of, for example, the total volume that you're doing, that you're performing when you're in the gym is important, and having a good grasp of, like, for example, your most recent training maxes or your 1 rep maxes, that is going to help us figure out the direction that you're going to be going as an athlete. Because if you don't know, it's going to take a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of a time period where we have to figure out where you're currently at, right, as an athlete, in terms of how you're performing in the gym, before we can actually take any sort of direction with it. Right?
Gotcha.
So,
and then sorry, I'm going to cut you off there. From Mary, from your perspective, does that differ at all with CrossFit athletes? Are there some other types of things that you have to look out for that you kind of see common that are coming in?
It really depends on the type of training that you want to do. I mean, there's much like powerlifting. I'm sure not everyone's goal is to rank at a meet, right? So everyone's goal at a CrossFit gym, depending on where they're going, is not necessarily to make it to the CrossFit game. My gym is a very average Joe's gym. We have everyone from the age of 15 to the age of 60. So it really depends on what that person's goal is coming in. And those goals, for me, have to be more along the lines of SMART goals. So they have to have realistic expectations of what they want to achieve coming in the door. And if they don't, then it's my job to kind of bring them back down to plan first. Because somebody who's never worked out in a day of their life is not going to come in and lose 50 pounds in 2 weeks. That is obviously unrealistic, and they need their expectations to be reset down to a level to where they are setting those SMART goals. SMART being specific, measurable, I think achievable. What's the other one? Results focused and time bound. So if somebody's goal is to lose 50 pounds in the next year, that's a little easier to achieve rather than 2 weeks. So it definitely differs as far as your powerlifting. Not a lot of people that I have walked through the door have any sort of training history other than they tried for 2 weeks at LA Fitness. They tried for 2 weeks to go running and none of it stuck. Then we have to dig into the whys. Why didn't it stick? What were you doing wrong? What was your mindset? And how can we overcome those things, those blocks that you have, in order to get you to the gym 3 days a week, to set that path for consistency?
Awesome. And I want to go back to something that you mentioned about having realistic goals coming in. So when someone does come to you and say, oh, I want to lose 50 pounds in X amount of time, that just doesn't make sense. How do you get them to shift their thinking into something that's going to be more longer term, but realistic?
So this is where I feel like any idiot could coach, to be honest. It is harder to be in the business of people than it is to coach people. So you really have to dig into their mentality rather than that surface level answer that they gave you, because there's more underneath that. So get down to their why. Why did they walk into your space to begin with? Why is it their goal to lose 50 pounds? Why isn't it their goal to maybe like be better at playing with their grandkids or have an easier time shuffling themselves up the stairs? So in order to reset their expectations, you have to do your due diligence at digging into them a little bit more and getting those answers that are much, much, much deeper than the surface level answer that they gave you.
That's a good insight. That's a good, for lack of a better term, insight on the person that's coming to you. They may not even necessarily know what it is that they want. And so as a coach, part of that art to it is, like you said, digging deeper into what they actually are motivated by, and anything on that. Jay, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah.
For your athletes?
No, I completely agree. Because I work a lot with numbers, right? So people give me their numbers, and I figure out the direction that they're going based on those numbers. But Mary's absolutely right. Sometimes if somebody gives me that, I might not necessarily know what they want to do with it. If they want to compete, if they just want to do general fitness, if they just want to improve upon those numbers, you do have to do your own due diligence as a coach. That's why communication, I think, is so important. And I think that's one mistake that coaches, a lot of coaches don't do, is they give their athletes their numbers. Here, I want you to hit this at a specific, rep range. Here's your number of sets. Here's your intensity. Here's your RPE. And they let the athletes kind of just do their own thing. There's a very small amount of communication. And some people can do it like that, right? Some people have a really good deal of autonomy, and you can give them a set of numbers and they can do it. But some athletes are not so much. Some athletes need a little bit more hand-holding, right, in the beginning. So absolutely correct. You do have to do your due diligence as a coach and build this kind of relationship and rapport with all your athletes so that both of you are on the same page, right? If you want to take an athlete in one direction, you have to also make sure that they are going in that same direction, or they want it to go that way to begin with.
Gotcha. For either of you guys, is there kind of like a standard that you start off with for any new person coming in terms of like how often you communicate, the types of programs that you may have them on, or like assessments or anything like that, to kind of get people on the same page? And then based on that, you individualize it, or how does that work?
Like
systemizing is super important. So if you're going to take an idea and make it into a business like a CrossFit gym, you want to have your standard operating procedures with everything that you do. So it doesn't differ from person to person. We take every single person in and are now just implementing this As far as what our touch points are, we're high touch. So if we get a lead that comes in, we're going to talk to them about where they've been, what they've been doing, if they have a history with it. But they come in and perform the same exact initial assessment. It's a PT first model. We want to make sure that they know everything they're doing before they jump into class, because our mentality is that class is for teaching or for coaching, not for teaching. So we want to take these individuals regardless, like I said, of how much experience they have, and put them through the same system every time, so everyone is getting the same message across the board when it comes to being in a class with us. So for those of you who don't know CrossFit, we do a workout of the day. Everybody does that same workout. It is 150% scalable to everyone that you put it through, regardless if that person is a novice athlete or if they're a level 10 CrossFit athlete. We can make it harder, we can make it easier. But the most important process is that intake process. So they feel like you actually care about them individually, regardless of if they're doing training in a group setting or not.
Gotcha. Jay?
So for me, I basically do a lot of the same things. I give most of my athletes so I have a lot of the same, the base program that I will give my athletes, the skeleton is very much the same. And I think that's another mistake that a lot of coaches make, is that they try too many things at once first, right? Because obviously you want to individualize the program, and people don't want to give their athletes kind of the quote unquote the cookie cutter things, right?
Right.
But I think if you try to specialize too much too soon, you can't really pinpoint on anything that they might need improvement on, right? Potential weaknesses, potential strengths, because there's too many things going on. So the skeleton, in my case, for a lot of programs, is very similar. And then we'll take one training block, which is about 4 to 6 weeks, see how they respond to that program, and then I'll start to branch off from there. So everybody pretty much gets a very similar base program. The skeleton is pretty much the same. We'll tweak it a little bit depending on the person. Of course, individuality is still important. The preference is still important. Like number of days they train per week, the type of training that they like to do, that'll differ. But the base program is very similar. And then I'll see how they respond in the first 4 to 6 weeks, and then we'll individualize from there.
I see. Gotcha. And then when someone that's brand new to training, or it may not brand new, but it kind of knows how to do things, but still has a lot of different pieces to improve on, how do you decide which things to tackle first? Whether it's like maybe they need to improve their squat form, or for Mary's case, maybe they don't know how to do the certain types of exercise, like a gymnastics movement or something like that. How do you know where to begin with somebody?
Like how to pick and choose what to kind of emphasize in the program.
Right.
That kind of goes into the individualization, right? For me, we only have so much time as coaches to work on our athletes and programs, right? Everybody has a deadline. If, like Mary said in the beginning, if you set up those SMART goals, you're going to have like a deadline, right? When is it that you want to accomplish this certain goal by? So it really has to do a lot with the time frame that the athlete wants to accomplish that goal by. And I'll ask, right? So for example, if we're preparing for a meet, we'll have the conversation of what do you want to get out of this meet? Is it just a meet for fun? Do you want to place in top 3? Do you want to qualify in total for nationals? Is there a specific lift that you want to improve on? And based on their answers to that, those are the kind of things that we will hone on during their training. So for example, if I have an athlete right now, she wants to place top 10 in the US Nationals. It's coming up pretty soon. So that's a measurable goal, right? We know exactly what we have to do. We know exactly who we have to kind of beat in order to place in the top 10. So that'll depend on how much information that I get from the athlete and what they want to focus on. So again, the whole communication thing that we go back to the question of what are mistakes that athletes and coaches make during training is that lack of communication, right? If you don't know what your athlete wants, you don't know what to program for.
In my situation, it's a little bit different, obviously, because the people coming into my gym aren't picking my gym because they want to go on to bigger and better things. A lot of the goals within my gym and my clientele are to move better, to look better naked, to be healthier, to be able to run around with your grandkids, to do the things that they don't necessarily get to do sitting down at a 9-to-5 job. And we've gone through a couple of different processes throughout the last 3-4 years of business to hone in on it's called an avatar, who your avatar is, who your specific clientele is, who you're projecting to. And we're, like I said, an average Joe's type of gym. So we're focusing it more so now on making sure that every new client coming in knows exactly what the 9 foundational movements are. So in 6 months' time, they're not looking at me going, well, what's a hang squat clean? I don't know what that is. So at least within the first month or so that they're there, they're getting that specific training. And then in class, we can kind of cater that specific movement to their skill level. So like I said, each and every single move within CrossFit can be scaled down to its nuts and bolts, and it can be doable by any party that wants to do it. So it's more so a focus on making sure that the form is there and the foundation is being built before we go high intensity anything or high weight in anything.
Actually, no, I'm not going to ask that question because that's not important. Let's move on to the intermediate athletes. So they've been training for, we'll say, 6 months to a year or so, and in various cases they've been at your gym for that amount of time. I don't know what that noise is. That's not coming from me.
Do not have anything open. Give me a second. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay, there we go. We all good. So intermediate, 6 months to a year, they've been working with you. What are some of the unique challenges that you may face with an intermediate as opposed to a beginner? Do their expectations change? Do they have different focuses? What are some of the things that differ, and then how do you manage those things?
I would say ego is a hard thing to manage in any case that you're trying to work with people. With an intermediate athlete, they have, let's just say, 6 months of CrossFit training under their belt, and they expect to now be able to work out that maybe they're not ready to RX. So they'll put, let's just say we have a wad with hang cleans in it and it's 95 pounds. That's reps at 95 pounds. They'll put 95 pounds on the bar and they're able to do 1 or 2 okay looking reps, and then that third rep is really looking bad on their spine and their hips aren't getting closed and all that good stuff. Thinking that they can go above and beyond and not necessarily trusting the process. So I think in today's day and age, everybody wants things to happen a lot faster than they do happen. And you guys are both aware of the fact that it takes time and for that time to get to a place. I've been doing it for 8 years. And when I first started, 35 pounds is heavy for me to lift over my head. Now 165 pounds is really not that fucking heavy if we're being honest, but it's obviously not where I was 8 years ago, but that's 8 years of training. So I would say the biggest challenge, again, we go back to managing people and their expectations as far as what they can do and how quickly they think they can do it.
Jay?
Yeah, no, that's some really good insight. I think putting the athlete in context, right, and having them understand the context of their own training. I see this issue with lifters across all difficulties, right? Whether it's a beginner lifter, an intermediate lifter, or an advanced lifter. If somebody is very diligent with tracking their program, they'll send it to me. I'll look it over, and then I'll kind of probe a little bit, right? For example, if somebody wants to improve in their squat, they're doing a competition back squat, and they might be doing a few accessory movements, right? They'll do a front squat, and then they might do a hack squat accessory movement to kind of improve on. Because let's say they want to improve their quads. and I'll probe a little bit. So why do you want to do those movements? Why are you including those movements in your training? And a lot of the times, the answer that I will get is, well, doing my research, I think, I saw that if I want to focus on my quad development, front squats seem to be the go-to movement, and hack squats seem to be the go-to movement. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that line of thinking. But then they forget themselves, right? The individual, they forget themselves. So somebody who wants to do front squats might not have the mechanics to do front squats properly. Them doing that movement, the train of thought, right? Their heart is in the right place, but if they don't have the basics down, right? If the foundational capacity to perform that movement correctly, it might be doing more harm than good. So I think figuring out the context of where you belong in the training is very important, right? So you can't just kind of pick and choose movements and think that they're going to benefit you because a lot of people say so. Are they going to benefit yourself because you can perform them properly? Are you seeing results from them? Those are important questions to ask. And this is a mistake that other coaches will make too. Like, an athlete will come up to them and say, well, I want to improve my bench press. And everybody seems to be doing like a floor press. And it seems like it's really going well for them. And then I'll ask, well, floor press is a good movement for triceps, and people do them to improve triceps and to improve the sticking point in the movement. And I'll look at their bench press, and they seem to have no issue with that sticking point, and they might very well have very well developed triceps. So then I'll tell them, hey, it seems like you don't have a problem with that sticking point. You have good tricep development. I think the issue might be stemming from somewhere else. Let's try and figure out other things. So, it's like the train of thought is there. They're doing their due diligence. They're doing their own research as to what they might need to improve on, but they don't have a good grasp of the context, right? Why are you doing this movement? Why would it benefit you?
Gotcha.
The context is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I've noticed, and especially, and even with myself, as I've started to get more years under my belt for training, is obviously progress has slowed since I acquired those newbie gains, and so I guess for you guys, I want to know, how do you, because I'm sure a lot of people kind of expect the quote unquote gain train to keep moving, but it's not moving as fast as it once was before. So what's your strategy for keeping someone motivated, but their expectations still grounded in reality? And I'm especially interested to hear you, Mary, because I feel like you train a lot of the typical person who, like you say, just wants to lose weight or just wants to play with their kids and stuff. So I'm really curious to hear how you manage that.
I always go back to, I lead with the end in mind. So what was your end goal? Why did you walk in the front door of my establishment as opposed to Planet Fitness, LA Fitness, the CrossFit gym down the road? And a lot of them is, their answers becomes, well, I couldn't do it by myself. I don't know what I'm doing. It's nice just to walk in and have somebody have a training program for me to where I can turn my brain off, work out for 60 minutes, and go home. So I always go back to what their end goal was, whether it was to look good naked, whether it was to be able to play with their kids. And I am a huge preacher of consistency and measuring that consistency, not with, obviously powerlifting, you have to be a lot more precise with what you're eating, how you're gaining, bulking, losing weight for that meet. It's not necessarily so precise in CrossFit. Obviously, if somebody wants to know their specific numbers, I can measure their body fat and do their, measurements as far as inches are concerned. But I'm a huge preacher of don't step on a scale, because that, obviously, you both know, lean muscle mass is more dense than fat is. So if people are working out consistently and they are losing body fat, they're also gaining lean muscle mass. So the number on the scale is not going to be indicative of their progress. So I'm very big on people taking pictures quarterly, whether that's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and then really grasping how their clothes are fitting and how they're feeling. So I'm a high touch person. I ask people all the time, so are your clothes fitting differently? Do you feel like it's looser? Do you feel more comfortable in your own skin? Are you moving around less sluggishly? How was, the walk to your car today as opposed to 6 months ago? What are the little things, the little markers in your day that are notably better for you than they were before you started CrossFit? Because people get in this negative mindset, right? Like, well, the scale isn't promoting the fact that I've lost any weight. Clearly all my efforts are not right. I shouldn't be doing this. And they get back into that same train of negative thoughts. And that's what totally kills their journey. But if they were to look at it a different way and not the way that America pumps at you, like get on the scale, lose weight, lose weight, lose weight, that's obviously not what it's all about, then they'll see that if they start taking those progress pictures, if they start notating that they're feeling a little better, they have more energy, they're sleeping better, their skin is better, they're a nicer person, all of those are great components to seeing your progress being made. So I try to go, obviously, in a roundabout way, how much more life has improved instead of just looking at that hard concrete number that so many people tend to rely on for the results that they're looking for.
For your athlete and for the people that come to you, do you, I love that strategy. Do you kind of like set specific things for them, or is it more so you let them kind of decide what is going to measure their success, quote unquote?
I will give them the tools to figuring out what those things are. But if they don't communicate those certain things with me, I like to tell my athletes that I don't read minds. I'm not telepathic in any way, shape, or form. So if they don't communicate what they want with me, then I have no way of knowing that. So they can't come back to me.
Oh, hey, Mary, can you hold on for 1 second? Sorry. The audio is kind of bugging right now. All right, go ahead and say something again.
Just about communication. We always go back to communication as far as their expectations being met, but them communicating those expectations.
Okay, gotcha. Awesome. Jay, do you have anything to add on that for your people?
Yes, I do. I'm really glad that she brought up the issue of when her athletes kind of get stuck in this one measure of progress, right? And in her case, she brought up the example of the scale. And this is another mistake that I think you can see it across all levels of beginner, intermediate, or advanced athlete is they'll focus too much on one thing when there's a whole bunch of other metrics that we can track to kind of see progress. In her case, it was the scale. It could be, visual progress using pictures. It could be even an extra rep or two when you're performing an exercise is a something indicative of progress in the long run. So focusing too much on one specific thing and thinking that your progress as an athlete is inherent on that one thing is a very common mistake. And I think as a coach, and Mary does a good job of this because she's so good at communicating. And I'd like to think that I do so also, is that I try to paint a very big picture, right? Because people do tend to focus on one or two things, especially for people that are very goal-oriented. If somebody wants to focus on their squat and they're not seeing improvement on their squats, it could be a little depressing sometimes, especially for the serious athletes that I see anyway. So giving the individual a lot of different tools that they can use to measure progress, painting them a bigger picture is, I think, very important. And what I do to keep them motivated is I use those tools. Okay, your maxing your squat might not have gone up, but look at the number of repetitions that you were performing with this weight when we started in week 1, and now look where you're at week 4. So even though they can't necessarily measure the absolute progress that they're making with their squat, there are progress in, you know, the amount of repetitions that they can do, the amount of sets that they can do. Maybe I'll ask them, hey, how did that set of 10 feel? And they're like, well, that set of 10 felt really easy. And then I'll go back, right, in their logs, and then I'll ask, how did you feel doing that set of 10 at that same weight when we started on week 1? And they're like, wow, yeah, it was a lot harder back then than it is now. So being able to communicate that to your athlete, giving them all those tools that they can use to measure progress is, I think, one of the best ways to keep them motivated.
Mm-hmm.
I would totally agree with that. And it's very important to give them those workouts that they can repeat and that they can see the progress being made. Yeah. So maybe a workout like today, for example, we repeated an open workout. So in the CrossFit world, there's like the CrossFit Olympics, and there's qualifying things just like in powerlifting meets. And today we repeated an open WOD. So if they have been doing CrossFit now for the last year, then they probably did this workout, and they could notably see if their consistency, their times, and their efforts paid off by either A, how much more they were able to lift, or B, how much faster they were able to complete the workout. So it's important to be able to throw them a bone like that so they can actually concretely see the numbers. And that's where and why numbers are important as well, even if you're a little bit more laissez-faire in your training style.
Awesome. That was a good discussion. I really enjoyed that. I think that was useful. I know, Mary, I want to respect your time, and so I'll last bit here with asking you more specifically some questions, and then we can chat another time. So I want to move over to, instead of the athletes, now the coaches in each of your guys' respective realms. So Mary, your CrossFit gym owner and coach, what as a new coach, you see a new coach coming in, what are some of the things that you see them making mistakes on, or you commonly see that they could improve on, or things that they could prevent or avoid doing to improve themselves as a coach from the get-go?
Obviously, when somebody's new at something, they're going to be scared AF, to be honest. If they don't have the people skills, they're going to be fumbling over their words. They're going to be, doing things wrong in their head. And I like to tell them, I'm actually the hirer of our coaches. I take them through our hiring process, all of our onboarding stuff. We work a lot with one-on-one personal development type stuff because it's a skill, obviously, that they need, that benefits them and it benefits our gym. So what I look for in a coach is not even necessarily that they're certified at this point, but most importantly, that they're on board with our mission and our vision. That's the most important thing for me, because if I have a coach coming in that only wants to train athletes and people that are, have a goal to go to the CrossFit Games or make it to regionals or whatever that is, they're going to be sorely disappointed in training just our average Joe clientele. So first and foremost, I look for somebody who, like I said, doesn't have to be certified. They can get that process going within starting training with us, but they're on board with what we're projecting to the world. Mission, vision, core values. All of those things are the most important thing in running our business. So with that being said, those people will then come in and say, yay or nay, like, we're on board with this. Like, customer experience is the most important thing on the face of the planet to us as well. Like, I don't care helping Jim, Bob, or Joe take weight off their bar in the middle of the workout. I'm all for doing that. Perfect. I want that person. Then we'll get on the path to getting them certified and what that looks like. But I want them to feel comfortable stepping into that role. So I will let them shadow. I give a large amount of time for them to shadow so they understand the processes of how our gym works. Like I said at the beginning, there should be, if you're running something appropriately, there should be standard operating procedures for how anything works. So they should have the knack of that before being just thrown into class. So by the time that they are ready to go, they should be confident enough in their skills because they've seen it enough. They've seen it repeated over and over and over again just to be able to get right into that role and feel comfortable. Now, I can't make anybody feel comfortable. They're going to have to do that through experience and putting in the work on themselves.
Right.
But I say probably one of the biggest things I see where coaches fail is just not stepping into their leadership enough. So if someone, I see this a lot with younger coaches, if someone has just started coaching and they have an athlete that's older than they are, say my coach is 30 years old and we have athletes in the gym that are 40, 45, they have an issue talking to that athlete about, maybe scaling down. Like, hey, Jim, you probably shouldn't be lifting that because your form is a little off and I want to see that the form is good before you go into the higher intensity WOD.
Yeah.
So I think just people skills. I always tell my coaches, if they fuck up, they fuck up. They should, if they don't fuck up, then they're a golden child and they have nothing to work on. Fucking up is a good thing for a lot of people because it's a learning experience. I also tell my coaches that they need to videotape themselves so they can go back and they can look at how they performed in class, the things that they said and the things that they'd like to improve on, because it helps to see yourself in the playback mood and say, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Because most of the time when you perceive yourself fucking up, nobody else sees that. You're having some internal dialogue and you're like, well, shit, I shouldn't have said that, or I missed out on doing this, or I shouldn't have done that. Not a lot of people know that you did mess up in that way, shape, or form. So I tell people to go into it and give themselves as much grace as they possibly can, because none of us started out like this. I was not as confident as I am today that I was 4 years ago when I first started out on this journey. It takes time, it takes repetition, and it takes fucking up in order to get to where you need to be and where you feel confident with yourself.
Yeah, definitely. The confidence piece is definitely key, and I'll say most of the battle is mostly just in your head, and like you said, the people don't even notice you made a mistake.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something that you said before about you put your coaches through like some personal development, things like that. Can you talk a little more about what those actual pieces are?
Well, as much as I'd like to retain our coaches for the long haul, I realize that not everyone's goal in life is to be a part-time CrossFit coach. So I want our situation to be a win-win. I want us to have a coach that we can rely on and one that's happy to be in our building, but I also want them to get from us what they need to carry on in their future to succeed. So if we have coaches now that are hell-bent on maybe owning a gym of their own at one point in time, I want them to take everything they can from our experience to be able to apply that to their end goal in the future. So we talk a lot about vision. We talk a lot about goals. We talk about how to obtain those things, the work that needs to be put in to get to that end goal and the steps that need to be taken. A lot of it is, like I said, just gaining the confidence in yourself to be able to do it. Maybe somebody doesn't really have a goal, then we work on formulating that goal and what that looks like and how they can use the experience that they're having within our space in order to formulate that end goal and then work towards it.
Gotcha. And then I'll ask my last question and then I'll open it up to you and you can say your last few words and tell people where to find you, follow you, and where your gym is.
Cool.
So last one is CrossFit gym ownership. Following on the same note, what are some of the common mistakes you find new owners running into?
I think a lot of people like to work out, and I think a lot of people like to work out with their friends. And because so many CrossFit gyms have popped up in the last decade, because it is something that has garnered a lot of attention, because it's gotten a lot of people off the couch and into a gym throwing down with their friends, but they don't treat it like a business. And there's a fine line between working out with your friends in your garage gym and making money doing something that you excel at. So I think the line is very blurred with a lot of people, and they don't understand what they're getting into as far as responsibilities, time, stress, and effort go, that a lot of gyms that I know of have a really hard time turning a profit and or having fun doing what they're doing. So I think much like everything, whether you're going in for a training program or you're going to start a business, the intention needs to be set, and you need to have a team of people around you. There's no way I could run this gym by myself. I have 2 business partners. We have our roles, we have our responsibilities, and we stay in our own lanes. There's no way that I could coach 20 hours a week, do intakes for leads, do follow-ups, do assessments, do advertising, do marketing, clean the gym, scrub the toilet. That is way too much responsibility for one person to handle. And I think getting into it, it looks like it could be like, you know, profitable and fun at the same time. So those expectations need to be reset. I think a lot of people skip the step where they go shadow a business owner. Like, you want to own a candy store? Go into your local candy store and see what it feels like to be an employee there. I think a lot of people miss that step and think that it's just this glamorous, I own a business type thing. And they don't see the behind the scenes work and what it takes to actually make that business run.
Right. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur until they get kicked in the face.
Yeah.
So I know I said that the last one, but really quick, you mentioned business partners, and I think this is very important for anyone who wants to even just have any kind of business. How did you identify the people that you went into business with? How did you know they were the right fit for you?
You don't. Honestly, you don't until you get into the thick of battle with them. Obviously, our end goals aligned. I had wanted to inadvertently, I put it out into the universe 6-7 years ago that it would be cool to own a CrossFit gym. Now, did I embark on that path right away? Absolutely not. I talked about it, and the strange thing that happens in the universe is that it kind of helps you achieve what you want to achieve if you're putting out those vibrations. So they say that you're a culmination of the 5 people you hang out with the most, and one of those people happened to be somebody that I worked out with at a CrossFit gym for the past 2 or 3 years. So we had talked about what it would look like to own a gym, and lo and behold, he went off and he opened up a space, and then he, knowing me and my intentions and what I was doing, reached out to me and said, hey, I need help. Do you want to help build this thing? And I was totally 100% on board. And not to paint the picture that I just got lucky like that, because we have moved through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other business partners within this partnership. So the 3 of us have decided that it should just remain the 3 of us, that we're not onboarding any other potential business partners, because it's been a headache. There's been times over the past 3 years that we're like, okay, you know, so there's not really a process to follow that says, hey, you check off this, this, and this. You fill this gap, this gap, this gap. I want you to be my business partner.
Yeah.
You know, because they can have a completely different idea of what running a business means after you guys sign the paperwork to embark on this journey together. And then you're like, oh shit, what did I get myself into? But that's part of the process. That's part of, I don't call anything a failure. It's always a learning experience. So that's part of learning and growing and making sure that you're with the right people, that you're doing the things that you want to do, and you have the right people in the right places.
Awesome. That's a great answer. Find people that align with you, what it is that you're seeking out to do, and that, I guess, for lack of a better term, align with you, essentially.
Well, and like I said, as far as like our onboarding of new coaches now, like, it's very clear. We make our expectations very clear from the get-go. This is our mission. This is our vision. These are our core values. This is what we expect from you. You should almost, and we have a business coach who said something like, you should almost try to get them not to apply for the job. You want to see what their answers are in throwing this at them. Like, this is what we do. Like, if Billy is sweating his ass off in the middle of the workout, we go give him a sweat rag and we basically wipe his brow for him. Are you on board with doing that? And you can tell right away in that interview if somebody's like, ooh, no, I'm not. Like, sure, I guess, because they want the job, then you know they're not going to be on board with what your core values are in the long term. Now, to flip that switch, if somebody's like, hell yeah, here's an experience I had a year ago, here's why I'm good at customer service, I do that stuff all the time, I want that person. I want that person to be a part of my team, because it's clear that their mindset is the exact same mindset that we have, and they're ready to go the distance with us.
Awesome. Well, all great answers. Mary, thank you so much for being on. Last thing, just tell us where people can find you, where they can find the gym, and anything else you want to say as parting words.
CrossFit North Phoenix is not located in Orlando. obviously. It's located in the North Phoenix area. You can definitely find that by just Googling CrossFit North Phoenix. And I do a lot of my personal work and projecting as far as just being an advocate for health and wellness on my own Instagram page called Manicured Meatheads.
Manicured Meatheads. That's good. I like that.
Thanks.
All right. Well, Mary, thank you again so much. We definitely could keep talking about nutrition things. We might actually see if we can get you back on to talk about that, because I'm super interested in CrossFit athlete nutrition. So we'll see if we can schedule something here again, and we'll definitely be better on time next time.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hey, I said it's never a failure. It's always a lesson, right?
Absolutely. Okay, Mary, have a good
Okay,
rest of
I
your
will
day.
talk to you guys later. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Juan, I think you're still muted.
Okay. Yeah, I'm worried about the audio on that. Like if you don't have yourself muted and then the other person is talking, you think that's gonna come through in your audio?
What do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So I like halfway through I started muting myself because like as she was speaking, I was seeing my mic. You know, I was like, oh crap,
Yeah.
is that gonna go through on your end?
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll see.
I really hope so, because I don't want to.
Because then you'll hear like 3 different screens, because you know how we have 3 different screens. We have like 3 different screens worth of audio.
You know, so long as I get the audio, I don't care how
Okay.
it goes. And so long as you can hear it out. Okay, cool. Well, that is all there is for today's episode of the podcast. I will put all of Mary's social links there so you guys can find her there. She has a great gym. She is a great person. I haven't met her, but she seems like a great person from what Jay says.
No, she knows her stuff. I mean, if that didn't kind of if you didn't see that with the way that she spoke and you know just kind of how excited she was to talk about her athletes and her business,
For sure.
I don't know. I don't know another definition of coach.
For sure. And like I said, I would love to get her back on to talk about nutrition, because we didn't get to do that, like you said. We weren't going to have time for. So yeah, I'll definitely reach out to her again here soon, and we'll try to get her back on, or another coach, to talk about the common pitfalls of nutrition that coaches run into with their athletes. So let's wrap up. Jay, where can people find you?
You could find me on just Instagram for now. A YouTube channel is indeed in the works, which is going to be separate from the Agora podcast, which is where we host all of our podcasts. It's going to be a lot more because the Agora podcast, obviously, it's a lot more heavy on the science. But this new YouTube channel is going to be a lot more on the basics. And we go over really common things like we talked about today, like the common pitfalls, mistakes that new athletes, new coaches make when they are embarking on their journey. And we're excited to have that. I'm working on it with a couple of some friends here back in Arizona. So that's it. That's in the works. But for now, you can find me on Instagram at agent_J. SCHROTH.
Awesome. And as per usual, you can find me at Mikey Ernesto, or no, not even Mikey Ernesto anymore. I changed it. That's right.
Oh,
it is. I have. It is Mikey_the Agora. I took out the Ernesto part, but in case you're curious, Ernesto is my middle name for anyone listening. You can find the podcasts, the blogs, everything at agoraten.com, AGORATEN.com. And you can also find the podcast on anchor.fm. Just search the Agora podcast, and it should be there. Again, guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope that we could still keep it rolling with this different format, since we are a couple thousand miles away from each other. Juan, I miss you.
Miss you too, buddy.
But we'll keep it going, and we'll keep educating. So you guys have a good rest of your day, and thanks for watching.